Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lindsey Speed with Traffic 911, and I am here today with Commander Turner with the Fort Worth Sheriff's Office Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. And hey, thank you for taking time to talk with me. I know y'all are busy doing a lot of super important things. So just thanks for taking time out of your day to chat with me.
Hey, well, thank you for having me.
Yes, and I was learning that this is Commander Turner's 31st year at Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. That's incredible. So tell us a little bit about you, Turner. Like, how did this come about with you working in trafficking?
Yeah, well, like I said, it was hard to believe it's been 31 years since I started with the department. A
Incredible.
lot of things a lot of things have changed. I've been very fortunate to be able to work in a lot of different areas within the department, and it's been a great ride. But in 2017, when Sheriff Wayburn, came into office, his goal was to set up a dedicated human trafficking child exploitation unit. So I was asked if I'd be willing to be the one to supervise that unit and kind of create that unit. And I said, well, this is a unique challenge. So I said, yeah, I will definitely do that. So, but at the time, really, we didn't have a good understanding what human trafficking was and really what it looked like here in North Texas and even, in the North Texas region, Texas in general. But
And what year was that?
2017 is when we
Okay.
actually
Okay.
started our unit. So, yeah, so we were very fortunate to come alongside some law enforcement partners that already had some dedicated human trafficking units that really kind of helped us along and really, showed us, okay, this is what we're seeing here locally in the North Texas region. But really, it was the interaction with our victim service providers and other social services that really gave us a better understanding, with like Traffic 911 and Unbound Now really provided us with a better insight of really what trafficking looked like here locally. So,
Mhm. Wow. Well, so since 2017, and y'all have done a lot since then. I'm super grateful. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you specifically is because I mean we're aware of and partner with some different law enforcement agencies, but I don't feel like anyone that I know of does more to focus on the demand side and the buyer side than you guys. And so I know you've seen a lot, and I hope that people can learn, I guess, just a little bit more about this side of things, because a lot of people are super focused on, they want to hear about survivors, which is super important,
right,
and the traffickers, they want to see the traffickers behind bars.
right.
But this part of the conversation isn't talked about as much, I feel like, and so we're definitely trying to bring that more to the light. And why do you think the demand side, or just to share with people, like, why is it important to address?
Well, I think really when you look at it from a holistic perspective, I mean, really, why does trafficking, specifically sex trafficking, exist? And the reason it exists is because there is a demand for it. There's a demand for commercial sex, and unfortunately, we hate to use the simple business model of supply and demand because we're actually talking about victims. But when you look at that, as long as there's a heavy demand for something, you're going to have somebody there that wants to supply that.
Mm.
And so that's really what, is the driving force behind this. And our perspective, if we can look at demand from from the aspect of reducing victimization, then I think we're going to, better at combating trafficking here in the locally as well as across the state.
Mm.
So I think really we had a great understanding, or try to have a better understanding of how demand really impacts trafficking, specifically sex trafficking. So
Yeah, no, it's so good. Yeah, and it really does, like you said, directly impact the victims. Because you take one girl off the street, and that's one girl off the street. You take a buyer off the street, and that could be several more transactions.
right,
And so it's so important. And so people will hear about this, and a lot of times they want to know, well, what is law enforcement doing, to affect this part of it? And we're talking this month, even on just a broader scale, how we can't police our way out of this.
Right.
However, it is an important piece of the puzzle. And so if people wanted to know, like, I mean, so what are you guys doing, to impact demand or address it? How would you share kind of just about like what you guys do with the stings and things like that?
Yeah. Yeah, really, when we first started this, even back in 2017, of course, purchasing or soliciting prostitution was all falls under the same prostitution statute. So it didn't matter whether you the seller or the buyer; it falls all under the same statute at the time. And really, what we were seeing, of course, it was just a low Class B misdemeanor, which is really the lowest level misdemeanor offense just above a ticket that were being charged against buyers. And when we started doing the initiatives back then, we were very focused on how demand was impacting trafficking. So we were still very much in tune with, we need to address this. But of course, being such a low level misdemeanor offense, it
Yeah.
really didn't have a lot of impact. And really, what we were seeing when we started talking to the local DA is that on these cases, that a lot of times the cases were being, very pled down to very low levels of, jail time, maybe 1 or 2 days in jail, or just outright being dismissed. And when we kind of started talking to them about how that really is not helping us when we're trying to curb the demand, is really they started taking a more concentrated focus effort on like, okay, well, maybe we need to do a little bit more than what we're doing on the prosecution side of things.
Mm.
But the operations themselves, it was more than just affecting the arrest of the individual, but it was also trying to, okay, so we arrest them, they go through the process, but what happens afterwards, right? I mean, if they're put on probation, that's
Yeah.
fine, but what are we doing to address the reason why they were doing this to begin with?
Yeah.
And we were very fortunate to come alongside some the local victim service providers here in North Texas. The Net specifically had a program called MAZE, Men Against Sexual Exploitation, and they were really doing some good work trying to curtail that the demand side of things and try to embrace and try to find out what's driving that individual
Yeah.
to go out and buy, or engage in commercial sex. So it's like, so really, when we were trying to do that, we were looking at it from that two-pronged approach, not just the arrest, not just the prosecution, but also subsequently what's going to happen afterwards, and maybe to provide them some resources to maybe curtail that activity. But since then, Texas has really looked at again how the purchasing commercial sex really impacts trafficking, and really has the legislatures have really kind of told law enforcement, like, look, we want y'all to pay more attention to the demand side of things and really look at
So good.
how that impacts trafficking. So they've been increased the penalty for first time offenses. Initially, it was a Class A misdemeanor, which was definitely better than a Class B. But now in 2019, they increased it to a state jail felony. Well, Texas is the first state in the nation to make a first time offense for solicitation and prostitution of felonies.
So
So,
good.
so we are leading the way on how to really impact that as far as, curtailing demand. Since that time, we've been partnering with all other law enforcement agencies and doing multiple operations that focus on buyers. And I can easily say probably since 2019, we're probably coming up to the arrest of some 600 plus buyers just in the North Texas.
Wow.
And when we look at that, now they're being sentenced to longer probationary periods. Usually some of them are actually sentenced to longer jail time, but now we're trying to actually work with the Net and the MAZE program, as well as Tarrant County Probation, to really try to build out a better program for the after, the arrest and probationary period that these individuals can engage with to hopefully again address that root problem that's causing them to go out and engage in commercial sex. So
Yeah, no, that's good because that's a question I've been asked before for people that understand or are savvy enough on sort of the prosecution side of things. They ask, well, okay, so now that Texas has made buying a first degree felony, um, how often is that actually what they get charged with, or like what happens after that? And would you be
Yeah.
able to walk us through just like if someone we know was a buyer and they got arrested on one of your stings, what happens?
Yeah, well, during the course of that, after the arrest, we usually try to conduct an interview with them if they allow us to, if they want to speak to us. And it's beyond just the basic, information that we're trying to get from them, but trying to really find out the reasoning why they're doing this. And
So
we
good.
also often have, representatives from Maze alongside us to also engage with them, knowing that that's not going to be used part of the investigative process, but it really to kind of talk to them after the arrest and really maybe provide them the immediate resources they need, maybe contacts, an advocate or something like that to reach out to once they're released from jail. But our
So they all
process,
go to jail. They all go to
yes,
jail.
yeah,
Okay.
there are no free passes.
Okay.
They will be going to jail. They'll be booked in. They'll go through the formal booking process, an arraignment to basically which point where they will set their bond amount, and then subsequently, after that, that's when the actual case is submitted to the DA's office for prosecution, and then it goes through that whole court process, the judicial process that can be somewhat lengthy, can take a year plus to actually find the resolution on those cases. But I can tell from or at least I'm proud to say from the Tarrant County District Attorney side of things, man, that they're very much on board with prosecuting these cases and really trying to see that these cases are not just dismissed outright for whatever reason. So we're very
That's all.
thankful for them and the hard work they're doing. And really, we're just, so proud of what Tarrant County is doing and what the North Texas region is doing to try to curtail demand right now. So,
Yeah, that's so cool. So cool to know. And it's good to hear that at least in Tarrant County, they really are working towards like prosecuting and not dropping that. And yeah,
yeah,
because I've gotten that question a lot, and I truly don't know the answer. But
yeah.
I mean, it's all progress. It's all progress
Yes,
from where we were.
yes,
And
very
then,
much so.
so talk us through, I don't, whatever you're allowed to share around like an operation. How often do you guys do them? What does that entail? Like if someone didn't actually understand of like what is a John Sting or however you call it, we're on the fence around here on how to label this because it is a label. But yeah, talk us through what that looks like and how often you guys do them.
Well, the frequency, is at least quarterly. We're involved in these operations. Some of them are very large scale, some are scaled back a little bit, but at least quarterly. But we usually have a large scale operation at least twice a year, and those operations usually run for a week at a time, and we can arrest up to 100, potential buyers during those periods. The operation itself is really us going on to these known escort service sites that often are being used for, for trafficking and posting what we call decoy ads. And those are ads that we set up. And when an individual reaches out to what they believe is an individual that is on these sites, basically engaging in prostitution, they're actually talking to a undercover officer. And those conversations are usually during chats or, text messages, or sometimes there's some phone calls. But once they agree to meet with the undercover officer to, basically engage in sexual contact for money, then we'll just we have a location that we have set up. We'll give them that location. And once they arrive, they are detained. And once we can confirm that is actually the individual that we are speaking to, then we subsequently, effect the arrest and tell them they're under arrest for solicitation and prostitution. And at that point, that's kind of when we go into the routine of kind of just talk to them, interview them, and see if they're willing to speak to us about, not only that they're the ones that we're actually doing it, but do they know about human trafficking? Do they know what it is?
Mhm.
Do they? A lot of them are, ignorant to the fact that what trafficking is, and they don't suspect that the individuals they're engaging with are potential trafficking victims. So,
Yeah.
but then it's also like, what is the root cause for them to seek out this? What caused them to go onto these sites to basically reach out to somebody and try to purchase sex, and a lot of times it comes back to some of the common denominators of, pornography. They watch pornography, they watch it over and over and over again to the point where it doesn't satisfy them anymore. So they want to go out and act out on these fantasies they have, and sometimes they either don't have a partner or a partner willing to act out those fantasies, so they're going out and purchasing an individual to act out these fantasies.
Mm.
And, oftentimes, when we start breaking down to them what trafficking is and, how they are basically driving the demand for trafficking or sex trafficking specifically. And it's like sometimes the light bulb goes off in their head, sometimes it doesn't. But I really think beyond that, the operations themselves, I think have been very beneficial. And another thing I think really impacts it is that oftentimes when we're talking to survivors, they talk about some of their worst exploitation has come at the hands of the buyers. Some of them have been extremely abusive. Some of them have even come to the point of almost, killing these a potential victim. I mean, and we unfortunately have seen some news articles here recently where individuals have been intentionally gone out to seek out, individuals that are engaged in prostitution for the purpose of, basically to murder them. And
Yeah.
so we know that also is another facet of what we're dealing with when we're engaging with these individuals because, this may be the one violent individual that has, assaulted multiple women at any given time, but because of what their lifestyle they're in, they're afraid that, law enforcement won't listen to it. So they
Mhm.
rarely report it. So we think we're also trying to make an impact on that side of things as well.
Yeah.
So
No, that's so cool. I'm so grateful for that you guys are doing it quarterly. And I know that oftentimes it's multiple law enforcement agencies all working together, which is also so good. And I think that I don't know, I just love to hear you say like you guys do sit down and interview them. You don't have to. Like that means you care about the deeper issue and not just, putting a band-aid on it, getting the guy off the street or something like that. But you guys are taking the time that you don't actually have to understand and I think humanize that because they are humans.
yeah,
They're doing bad things, but
right,
um,
right.
they're human at the end of the day. That it's nice that even in that experience, someone's sitting down to say, "Hey, man, like, what's up?" I don't know. I just think that that's really why don't you think more communities do these? I ask because I know communities that don't do it, and I wish I saw more of what was happening in Tarrant County across the board. Yeah,
Well, I think it really starts, do you have enough input to understand how demand impacts trafficking? I think a lot of smaller agencies maybe just not have the abilities to run these type of operations, even though I know the Texas Department of Public Safety is very much on board with running similar operations across the state. But I think a lot of unfortunately think this is a victimless crime, right? That well they were just out purchasing sex, no big deal, right? They don't understand the broader concept of how that actually impacts trafficking and why it's driving the demand for sex trafficking.
mm,
And I think that's why we maybe don't see it as much as we could if there was a more significant impact as far as having a better understanding of how what it really does and really what the demand side is when it comes to sex trafficking. I think we're getting better at it, honestly.
yeah,
But I do think, there are some agencies, and that's buy-in from the top down. Usually the head of the organization, whatever that law enforcement organization is,
yeah.
really have to have that buy-in that, look, this is important to us to pay attention to, and we really want to focus our efforts on that, with
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, how much does buy-in from the top play into that? Because, like, I guess I'm just wondering, is it if there's let's say a larger city or a county who maybe residents there want to see this happen more, would it be something where they talk to the city council about or they call like just to say like how do you get the top bought in because it sounds like you guys have the top bought in.
Yeah. I think really that's really coming together and doing, what awareness is, community awareness and having an
Yeah,
understanding of how this impacts it. I think when
yeah,
you start, especially if you're bringing a survivor in to talk about it, and really them explaining and talking about their interaction with violent buyers and things of that nature. I think that really hits home
True.
to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I think if you have more awareness out there, and then that will provide more buy-in from organizational leaders. We're very fortunate with Sheriff Wayburn. He's very forward-thinking when it comes to how we engage human, or how we combat human trafficking in Tarrant County, and
Yeah.
has a good understanding of how those nuances come into play, especially when it comes to the demand side of things. So I think we're very fortunate that, but there are a lot of organizational leaders in Tarrant County and law enforcement and other governmental entities that feel the same way. So I mean,
Yeah.
again, we're very fortunate, but I think a lot of it's just awareness. I think if they are able to bring a collective group together to really talk about these issues that are going on in our society and really have a good understanding of it, then I think that would provide more emphasis on, okay, we really need to do something about this. So
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. I think that's a great point, and why things like this are necessary, and January is the perfect time to talk about it, just with it being Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and just trying to get it on people's radar more. And speaking of, I feel like one of the maybe myths, or maybe just no, there's not enough education on, like, who are the buyers. You've arrested a lot of buyers over the years, and what would you tell, like, the general public on kind of like the profiles that you see, or did they fit any kind of description? You mentioned usage of pornography, but more just like demographics, or yeah, who are the buyers?
And that's an interesting conversation to have, because oftentimes when you talk to individuals about who they believe, buyers are, they believe they're, under, non-educated, working class individuals that, really, are not uh, main partners, or, community members and things of that nature. But
Mm,
really what we have seen is that it's the gamut of all of it. We have arrested, CEOs of organizations. We have arrested, construction workers. And race is not. There's no demographics as far as that is concerned on what a buyer looks like. I mean, we have arrested individuals of all races and ages, range from the youngest individual that's ever been arrested has been 18 to the oldest one being in his mid 70s.
mm,
So I mean, this a wide gamut, and then of course, a significant portion of them are married, that have children, and it's just all over the place. And I think that's another thing that the education piece really comes into play, and the awareness piece that you know a buyer can be anybody, and oftentimes people are shocked to hear that the individuals that are arrested, during these operations, and you often see it, in the news of some of these individuals are deemed more high profile because of
yeah.
their status in society. And it's really just an eye opener that, wow, there is no set, demographic on buyers here. So
It's such an important point to make, because I think what that does is it gives onus on all of us. There's no community that's exempt. There's no neighborhood that's exempt. There's demand all over. And so I think that increases all of our the need, just the need, and to to do something, to say
right,
something, to educate within your circle and within your network, because you just never know who it is.
right, right. And that is a great point. I mean, and I think, of course, there's a lot of shame that comes with that. I think
Yeah.
they're afraid to openly admit that they've done that in the past, and that they are doing that, and aren't willing to seek help for it because of the shame.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of it is, once you get arrested, I mean, that's pretty shameful too. So it's like, and
Yeah.
that's very public.
That's
At
true.
least if you can address that ahead of time, and hopefully get and the help that individual needs, to address the underlying issues, then hopefully, they won't end up on one of our stains, right? And
Yeah.
I would love to point to where we only arrest two or three, because no one is, the demand has driven so far down that,
Yeah.
we're not arresting anybody. But unfortunately, I just you know, as it stands right now, I think us, it's the word is getting out more and more that it's now a felony. Most of the individuals we are arrested are shocked that they're being arrested for a felony. Most of them think they're getting a ticket and going home, and it's like, no, that's not the case. So it's like, so I think we're
Huh.
doing a good job of that, but I still, again, I think that's a lot of public awareness too, that getting it out there that if you're going to engage in this activity and you get arrested, you're facing a felony charge. And I think
Yeah.
we continue need to pump that out, um, you know, to the communities to let them know, and so that those individuals that are maybe on the fence about engaging in this behavior, maybe that will be the moment they say, yeah, it's too risky. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You raise the risk level. I always say it's risk versus reward when it comes
yeah,
to demand. And what we're
yes.
trying to do is raise the risk level. That's one piece of the pie. We talked about with one of the former buyers, he talks about just how it really is a heart change at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Something's got
Yeah.
to change on that side. But around how many buyers can you arrest in one sting? Or like, yeah.
Ooh, I mean, honestly, we've gotten to a point where we've arrested 40 individuals and we had to stop because we cannot arrest anymore. We
Wow.
could, we had the ability to continue on, but
So
unfortunately,
in one night, that's how
one,
many.
yeah, I mean, we have been part of operations where there's literally been, 40 individuals, arrested.
Wow.
There have been individuals, operationally wise, where we've run a large scale operation for a week where close to 100 of individuals have been arrested.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is, it's shocking to believe that that can happen, but it does. And to really see it, it really is an eye opener how much demand there is out there, and really
Yeah.
why sex trafficking is the problem that it is. So,
Yeah. What's like if you can think of like what's a win or a success that you've seen just overall, or you can answer that however you want, but just like with what you guys have done, or maybe someone you've met, or just anything, like what do you think from your vantage point like a win or a success is?
well, I'll be honest. I mean, if our thing is, if we can engage with these individuals and provide them the resources that will prevent them from going out and buying again, that is a win for us, right? Because
Yeah.
we know that means that there's not going to be somebody exploited by them. And I think that is a huge thing for us. With the again the programs that are trying to be implemented in order to address some of this during their probationary period. I
Mm-hmm.
think such a huge issue and so important to what we need when it comes to addressing demand.
Yeah.
Programs are so important. And again, like, you mentioned earlier, we just can't arrest, go through the process and let them out and then they're right
Yeah.
back. There has to be something in there built in to at least try to break this cycle.
Yeah.
And I think we've been fortunate that, with, the Nets group coming out and working alongside of us
Yeah.
and, listening to some of the follow-up conversations with them, about how they're still engaged with these buyers that they've met, and these
So good.
buyers ending some of their programs that they offer and getting, support, through these programs. I think that's, a win for us,
Yeah.
but, we still have a long ways to go.
Yeah.
Hopefully at some point, this will be, part of a mandated, recommendation through judges, that you will attend this program once you're arrested
Mhm.
for this offense. And so we're working towards that. But I mean, I think those are great wins for us when we know that we've, turned that buyer into somebody that's more conscious and has a better understanding of the reason why they're buying and really curtailing that activity. So,
It's so good. That's so good. What do you wish the public knew when it comes to demand?
well, I think the big thing, like we mentioned earlier, this is not a victimless crime. Though we may be the ones arresting them, oftentimes they've engaged with other potential, victims, or engaged with real victims
Yeah.
on multiple occasions, and it's like, and it's just one of those things that we have to have a understanding that if we're really going to combat, human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking, that demand, we have to go for the demand side of things. If we, again, and I hate using a business model, but if we can reduce the demand, then the supply hopefully will follow in suit, that the supply will go down and thus there will be less exploitation. But I
Okay.
think if the community awareness piece, with what Traffic 911 is doing about trying to raise awareness about around demand is so huge, and really have a better understanding of what it is, what it looks like, and debunking the myths, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
so important. And and that is really what I think, and I hope as we move forward and continue to progress, that we will actually start, seeing that turn in society that really looks at this and really has a better understanding of, how can we provide support for the individuals that are drawn to this and provide them the resources to, whatever that may be in order to curtail them from going out and buying. So
Yeah, that's good. What keeps you up at night?
I think just a sheer number of individuals out there that are we arrest, and there seems to be right now a never ending demand, and I think, again, we're working so hard to try to curb demand, and hopefully at some point, maybe it's not during my career, but maybe 10 years down the road, we'll see the fruits of our labor. And
Yeah.
but as it stands right now, it's just there's just such a strong drive out there for individuals to go out and purchase sex, that and I don't, it just is it's kind of hard to believe that it actually is as bad as it is, but
Yeah.
until you're in it, until you see it, until you actually are immersed into what some of the operations, then you really understand, like, okay, yeah, this is a very significant problem. Unfortunately, I don't think pornography is ever going to be, stopped. So as long as pornography is out there and easily accessible, I think that's still going to be an issue. So I think
Yeah.
that is something that we wish that we could get a better control of, but we know that's not going to happen. So it's like,
Yeah. Such a huge
but
driver.
yeah, but I think, again, I think that is just what's more disturbing to me. And I'll be honest with you, there are some times when the individual they're soliciting are underage, right? That we're posing as underage, 16, 17-year olds, and it doesn't impact them, and I
Mm.
think that is disturbing as well, that we have individuals that either don't care or are actively looking for children, and that keeps me up at night. So
And on the other side, what keeps you going? You've been doing this a long time. So how in the world are you still in it?
uh,
And yeah, what fuels you?
I'll be honest with you, it's talking to survivors, and listening to them, and listening to individuals that we engage with on the opposite side of things on our outreach operations, and talking to them, and really having them thank us for the way we're treating them.
Mm.
But I think it's really knowing that, um, listening to their, what they are so grateful for, as far as how law enforcement has changed their vision of how to address and sex trafficking, and really go after the demand and the traffickers, and to provide the resources for the victims to, actually provide them the ability to for some more restorative care. But I really honestly think that's what keeps me going, listening to the survivor stories and hearing some thank yous, and that we treated them like a with dignity and respect, and oftentimes that has not come from law enforcement. So
That is my favorite answer. I love that. And I just love that, yeah, you guys really are the real deal and how you treat people as humans. And it's just so good. Okay, last question might be a hard one, but I think it's appropriate. If there's a buyer watching, or someone who's considering buying or has, what would you say to them?
I would say, you may see a photo that's enticing. You may talk to that individual and think they're willing participants in, this, what they deem consensual transaction, but majority of the time they're not. Majority of the time they're forced to do that whether it be through a trafficker or some other situation that's in this individual's lives that are causing them to go out and engage in prostitution. But to the buyers, we're out there. The next person you talk to may not be the real deal. And the ones that you are engaging with, they're likely victims. And you need to have a good understanding of that because if you are going out there and exploiting a known victim, then you can be charged with trafficking itself. So, and which carries a more hefty penalty than does solicitation and prostitution. So, if you need help, seek it. It's out there. There are plenty of resources for you. Help yourself, help your family, help your friends, whatever it may be. But just don't buy. Let's put it that way. Don't buy.
So good. Wow. Well, hey, I thank you so much, Commander Turner, just for who you are and for what you're doing, and that you've been doing this for so many years. It's just really incredible. So thanks for
Well,
chatting with me.
yeah. Well, I want to say thank you, Lindsey, because the partnerships with you and the other victim survivor is so important in combating human trafficking. And I will say that Traffic 911 is one of our strongest allies, and we are so thankful to have you in our corner. So
Thank you. Thank you. Grateful. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in.